So I just finished watching Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I don't really know a good way to describe this show. Essentially, Duncan the Tall decides to join an attorney to get his name out there as he wants to be a hedge knight who just goes around Westeros helping people. He meets Egg, who he thinks is an orphan, but is actually the youngest Targaryen prince. Egg also wants to be Duncan's squire. Before Duncan can learn all of this, he comes across Prince Aerion, Egg's older brother, who comes with his own warnings. Chaos ensues. The only thing y'all need to know at this point is I have been in this fandom about 15 years. That means I have read all 5 of the A Song of Ice and Fire books, all 3 of the A Night of the Seven Kingdoms novellas, or the Duncan Egg Tales, and the A World of Ice and Fire encyclopedia. I did not read Fire and Blood when I found out about it. I just realized it was just A World of Ice and Fire completely from the Targaryen's perspective, and I wasn't about to waste my time. Also, I spent a good amount of my life in the Tower of the Hand forums, which essentially the Game of Thrones forums. And none of that was really here nor there, but I need you to understand where I'm coming from when I say this is the better show. You have to understand that Game of Thrones is a fully war-torn Westeros situation. Even from like the first season, where they really just set you up they set you up as far as like a baseline, but there was always like there's underlying tension there. There's always a problem. So like war wasn't completely like far away. It wasn't far away from happening. Not really. And then you have House of the Dragon, which was always going to be a succession issue because of the way Rhaenyra's father handled her succession, really. Plus, Daemon was a groomer. He was always angling toward being Rhaenyra's husband and therefore her king. So you have Night of the Seven Kingdoms, where the Targaryens are still kings, but they are dragonless. So they have to act like, kings who care about their commoners, at least a little bit. Then you have people like the Baratheons, who are High Lords or Lords Paramount, because I do believe the Baratheons are Lords Paramount, actually. But they still a little swaggy. They still do whatever, because at the end of the day, the Baratheons intermarry with Targaryens a lot. So it's like, yeah, they're Lords Paramount, but like also my cousin the Queen. So what are you talking about? And then you also, in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, you have lesser lords like the Fossaways, who stick to their bit with the apple puns. And I enjoyed that. And just for a little razzle dazzle, you get hedge knights like Duncan the Tall, and you get other commoners, other tiers of commoners or whatever. But you're really seeing basically this entire story from a commoner's perspective. And as a bonus, you get a full Targaryen family, because Egg is the 4th son of a 4th son. So he got a ton of cousins and a couple of uncles and a granddaddy. And everybody's last name is Targaryen. So what's up? So I have to say, like, I read the Duncan Egg stories about 13 years ago, somewhere like between 2013 and 2014. So I don't remember the fine details, but I remember a lot of the overarching stuff. So this story is actually like a generation after the first Blackfyre Rebellion, which was when Aegon IV, Aegon the Unworthy, gave his sword to his eldest son, who was a bastard, but gave the crown to the second-born son, who was not a bastard, and legitimized all of his bastards, I want to say. I believe it was all of his bastards, but you're only going to hear about the great bastards, which are essentially the ones who had, like, their parents were lords or ladies or whatever, or they, at the very least, made, like, names for themselves. Don't worry, you'll hear much more about it in the second season, I assure you. So even though I'm saying, like, you're getting a regular degular Westeros in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, war is still a possibility. It's just unlikely. In fact, they don't really have wars. They have rebellions. because there's 3 Blackfire rebellions all together, and I believe the second one happens during Egg's time. And I know for a fact, like season 2 and 3, like they keep running into hints of the Blackfire rebellions, and like I think part 3 they'll run into a Blackfire cousin actually. But again, that's not either here nor there in this first season, although they do talk about, one, the Blackfire rebellions, and two, it gives you an insight into what the lesser lords think of the Targaryens, specifically now that they're dragonless. You have to remember the Targaryens are invaders. Like, they're colonizers. They really only controlled Westeros for about 300 years. And this is like in the midst of the last century of it, to be quite fair. In fact, I believe these are Rhaenyra's great-grands, I think. I'd be afraid to look at my A World of Ice and Fire books with the family trees, because every time I look at the books and I look at the shows, they do be doing something stupid. But anyways, back to the show. So, in my personal opinion, I don't remember the Laughing Storm being a part of this particular story. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but because the character looks like he's like in his mid-30s, almost 40s or whatever, he has gray hair. Now, you could say that that is a Targaryen trait, and I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, but you just would assume he's like late 30s, early 40s or something. So you would assume he has a son at the very least Aegon's age, Egg's age. And if you know anything about what happens with Egg, then you would know that the Laughing Storm has a rebellion about 20, 30 years down the line behind the decisions made by Egg's children. And Egg's still alive at the time. Dunk's still alive as well. But like for the Laughing Storm to be the elder of the 3, and he's still alive and vigorous enough to do a whole rebellion, and he was fighting in the rebellion too. That's the thing. Then like, how does this work? Like, that man was aware enough to hold full grudges. Okay? But again, I don't mind the addition of Lionel Baratheon because I'm a Baratheon fan. Big Baratheon fan over here. I've been a fan so long. I was a fan of them when they were still Durandons. And I'm going to be a fan of them now that their last name is Waters. And Gendry don't know what he's doing with his life. An addition I did not like was Valar Targaryen. Don't get me wrong, it was all very well done, and it really did add to like the plot and the emotions and whatnot. But him being at the tourney makes his father's decision to join the Trial of Seven a little questionable, because the audience then goes, well, why didn't he just send his son? The cousins were there. It can even be said that Raymond Fossway doesn't even need to be knighted if Valar at the very least joins his father in joining Dunk's side. And shout out to the actor that plays Darren the Dreamer, because I forgot when that character dies, but I know it's not going to be no time soon. But the actor gets to show up and play a drunkard. And he's probably going to be used for 3 seasons. So shout out to him. But yeah, that's about it. I look forward to many more seasons of this show. And I'm especially looking forward to the freaking merchandise, because I would like a red apple Flossaway jacket and a Baratheon antler crown. Please and thanks. But yeah, if you like Renaissance fairs, Game of Thrones, like the first series, and medieval stories showed from the viewpoint of peasants and world building, this show is absolutely for you. It's for me too, but please note that I will not be fighting a soul on the internet about any of this. Y'all got it.